Good evening. Welcome to this evening of interaction and engagement, of listening and learning to one another as the Interfaith Covenant community of Lake Hills and Crossroads shares once again an evening of learning and growing together for the first time in about 3 years. So welcome back to Cross of Christ Lutheran Church. I'm Dave Thomas, the lead pastor and head of staff here on behalf of this community. Welcome here, and on behalf of the Interfaith community that you'll hear more from in just a moment, welcome to all. We also want to welcome the many who are joining us via live stream and a recording of this evening. And as we want to make sure that that is accessible to others and also as well done with video and sound as possible, if you haven't had the opportunity, this is a great opportunity to check that your cell phones are silenced. You're welcome to take short videos, but not to video the entire production since we are videoing it, or to take photos. And just note to others, send it out, that you're thinking of them as you're finding this interesting evening, and share that they can watch it online as well. We want you to feel at home while you are here. Some of you were welcoming back for many, many years, and others, this might be your first time here, but all of you, we're glad that you're here. So a little lay of the land. As we exit this space and go into the main lobby area, the narthex, if you're looking for the restrooms, you want to go down the main hallway. It's got a big sign on it. It says West Wing. So our joke around here is if you're looking for the Oval Office, it's in the West Wing. After our time together, we also invite you to stay for treats, and we thank those who have made cookies and other desserts available. There's water as well. Thank you for everybody who's doing that. We are taking a free will offering for Hearts and Hammers, our outreach to our neighbors in need with once a year building and repair projects. And we thank you for those who have already donated to that. There's a basket in the small entry area for that as well. We do want to thank those who have made this evening possible, and a special thanks to Colin Walker, the congregational president here, and also our worship technologies coordinator for making the live stream possible. Now that I've welcomed you, it's my honor to welcome my friend and Interfaith Covenant Committee member as well, Molly Lawner. Molly will introduce our facilitator for the evening, and we'll learn more about our panelists. Welcome to all of you. It is an honor and a joy to share this evening with you. I look forward to growing and learning and sharing more tonight, and I especially am glad that you would be willing to spend this time with us and with those who are joining us from home. Molly?
Thank you, Pastor Dave. On behalf of the Interfaith community, I'd like to welcome everybody and to thank you so much for coming out at night. I'm a resident of a community in Issaquah, a large retirement community called Timber Ridge. And we have a wonderful program that deals with aging. And so we have already had this program at our community, and I thought it was so wonderful. I thought it would be perfect for our annual event that we have this time of year. I would like to introduce the moderator of this panel, who is also a resident of Timber Ridge along with me, Reverend Tom Quigley, and I'm actually going to let him introduce himself and tell you a little bit about his background. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly, and good evening, everyone. Thank you, Pastor Dave. I'm really glad to be here. I'm glad to remember some things that have happened here, and to remember some of the work that your Interfaith Ecumenical Covenant has been about for many, many years. Molly asked me to introduce myself a little bit. I'm a pastor, but my ministry through the years has been working with local congregations in ecumenical and interfaith contexts, helping them to work together in response to a whole range of human needs. And I have done that in 5 different communities across the country, and the last of those was working with the Church Council of Greater Seattle. In that capacity, I know we did a program with Cross of Christ Church and other congregations in this neighborhood having to do with relating to the local schools. And so it's good to be here. I also remember being here for one of these events when Father Tracy was the speaker, and we all miss him, and it's good to remember him at this time. So I want to introduce the panel, and I'll do it in order and then say a few things about how we got here, and then we'll start the conversation. Reverend Sendo Howells is a novice Zen Buddhist priest at the Choboji Zen Temple on North Beacon Hill in Seattle. The Reverend Sharon Nichols is the worship coordinator at Horizon House, which is a senior living facility in downtown Seattle, and she lives in the Renton Highlands area. Dr. Sanaa Joy Carey is a retired counseling psychologist. She's been very active in interfaith programs and interfaith work for a number of years and has been a Sufi Muslim for over 30 years. She lives actually in your neighborhood. And then Rabbi James Mirel is Rabbi Emeritus of Temple B'nai Torah, as well as the current rabbi at Bet Sharim. He lives in Seattle. So he's been a part of this effort for a number of years as well. And let me say first how it is, I think, anyway, that we got to be all together in this place tonight. Molly alluded to that. Several of us live at Timber Ridge, which is a senior community in Issaquah, and there are about 500 seniors. It's a secular, for-profit facility. More than several of the residents there came from this part of the community, and so there are some continuing connections with these congregations. Those of us who moved in phase 2 of that building in 2016 moved in either just before or just after the presidential election of 2016. Wow. So think back to that time. And my wife and I were sort of told or informed after we got there that you can do lots of things here, lots of activities, but you don't talk about politics and you don't talk about religion. Well, that surprised us for a while, and particularly because it was just after the 2016 election. That sort of ground rule didn't last very long. We needed to talk that out. We needed to share. And so while there were some rough edges about that, that happened. But widespread public discussion of religion or spirituality continued to be an issue. And in some ways, it still is. To be sure, residents were and are encouraged to meet together, to pray together, to have Bible study, and to worship together, either in their denominational traditions or ecumenically, and in some cases on an interfaith basis. But by and large, such sharing is private, and it's not a part of the normal ongoing program of Timber Ridge. I've been privileged to be a part of a group called Empowered Aging, and we have done a lecture series on a monthly basis since 2018, bringing in lots of expertise, professors from the University of Washington School of Medicine and School of Nursing, School of Social Work, practicing physicians, other professionals in various fields to help us understand what some of the resources are or some of the best thinking and some of the recent research about how to approach various questions as we age, how to address the big questions and the big decisions that we all need to make as we reach the ends of our lives. Well, that lecture group also didn't address religion or spirituality in its first 3 or 4 years. But last April we did, and we brought together this panel, almost exactly this panel. Sendo's here as a newcomer to the panel, but the others, we were all together and did that, and it went pretty well. Molly attended that. Some of the others of you were there, and I think that's how we got invited to come tonight. So we're glad that's happened. In my experience over the years, I've found that it's important to approach these kinds of interfaith discussions as opportunities to both give and receive gifts. So our hope is, at least, that this tonight will be an interfaith gift exchange, that we'll have some gifts to share and that you'll have some gifts to share as well. We'll have some time for question and answers following the panel discussion. I've also learned that it's important to remember that, and to say out loud, that we're here as individuals. We're seekers. We're searchers, just as I know all of you are. We're not here as official spokespersons for our particular faith communities or our particular belief systems. We're going to try to keep this discussion this evening in the first person. I think this. I believe this. I have experienced this, rather than trying to speak for everybody. We can't do that. So that sort of sets the stage. I want to help our panelists introduce themselves a little more by telling us more about your own, where you are in life and where you are in your faith experience right now. We're all aging. We're all experiencing some of the changes and the challenges that come with that. The COVID pandemic brought its own changes and challenges that we've experienced in a variety of ways. For some of us, our work situation has changed recently, or our living situation has changed recently. And for a variety of reasons, there may have been changes in our relationship with a faith community or with a faith community that we've been a part of, a good part of our lives. So tell us, if you will, what's your life like these days? What's your connection with the faith community like these days? Help us understand you. I'm going to ask Sharon to speak first.
I think Tom knows that I'm the extrovert among the group. I normally like to break the ice. I figure at least if I do that, then it'll be easier for others to jump into. I attend All Pilgrims Christian Church in Seattle on Capitol Hill. David, my husband, is here tonight, and he and I wanted to check out various congregations when we first moved here in 2008. And delighted to find a place close to Seattle University where I continued on seminary there, School of Theology and Ministry. But anyway, I love that church. It's making lots of changes that are hard for me because I love sight reading music. I love singing various parts of hymns. And we're not doing it that way now. We are in the fellowship hall, and we're around tables, and we have conversations with as many as 4 other people at the table during worship, in kind of in response to the questions brought up from the sermon. So it's very different, but it's working.
Okay.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. Sendo, how about you?
Well, at age 81, I've been practicing with my Zen Buddhist Sangha for nearly a decade. And before that, for about 6 years, after I had moved to Seattle, retired and moved to Seattle, I was a member of the University Unitarian Church. After I retired, I realized I needed a community, and church communities were good communities, and you didn't have any requirements about what you had to believe in as a Unitarian. So that was my entry point. Moving towards and into Zen practice has been the adventure of my 70s and is continuing now as I'm beginning to move into my 80s. It's not letting up. The adventuresomeness of it is not letting up. I'm in a small, intense, caring community, my Choboji Sangha. I wouldn't have predicted at all in my earlier life that I would end up where I am now. It has been a process of discovery, growth, spiritual growth especially, but also personal growth, being asked, expected, encouraged to rise to challenges and do things I didn't think I could do. Just amazingly rewarding experience, which is, I feel like I'm still just beginning, but in Zen, we always feel like we're just beginning. That's one of the wonderful things about Zen. You're always just beginning.
Thank you. Sanaa?
Well, first of all, I would just like to honor all of you for your interest in interfaith. As we know, the world, and our little world here in the United States, divisiveness seems to be growing. And may you be greatly blessed for your desire to learn about the other. I think that's a way of helping the world, at least our little world. So I thank you and I honor you. Since I'm an introvert, there were things about the COVID restrictions that I learned to enjoy. For one thing, Zoom is a great godsend because I could stay in contact with my friends, stay in contact with my clients, and also with the worship services at the mosque. And it was a way of connecting, but also during COVID, I started asking myself, well, first of all, I did a Zen thing without knowing it. I became aware of how busy I was, how many activities I was engaged in, even as a retired person, some of which really weren't meaningful to me anymore, and I probably wasn't contributing to others. So I cut back intentionally on my own activities, and since COVID restrictions have pretty much lifted, I don't get as busy as I used to. At the same time, I love to be active. I want to be involved to the extent I can. And so I'm just more intentional about what I choose to do. And I'm grateful for that change, very grateful. So I look forward to whatever is next in our evolution as a country and as a world. Things are changing, not just in our lives as we get older. The world is changing, and the climate, I believe, very strongly is changing, and maybe that's a requirement for all of us to reflect on how we want to change, what are the values we want to bring with us, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm kind of excited about the reopening, such as it is, and I do wear a mask most of the time myself, but it's good to be able to be out and not quite as busy as I used to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim?
Before I speak about my own personal faith journey, I do want to echo what we've heard before. It's just a great pleasure to be here and to share ourselves and our journey with you. We have a nice group of people in this beautiful sanctuary at Cross of Christ, and thank you, Pastor Dave. So gracious. We have a good group here, and I imagine there are a lot of people who are out there in that great world of the internet watching us as well, and you're also here with us. And according to what the good pastor said, this is also being recorded for posterity, and it's going to be on YouTube. I don't know exactly how we're going to access it, but I know a lot about YouTube. So there might be some people out there who are watching this 100 years from now, in the year 2123, and you might say, well, what was going on back there 100 years ago? Well, we'll all be dead by that time, but just know that we're just glad that you're still on this earth and that we continue on. We don't know how many years in the future this might be being witnessed by people that have not been born yet. So it's a pretty amazing thing when you think of it. We're here at Cross of Christ Lutheran Church. We're part of an interfaith world, which I've been part of for many, many years. I'm 75 years old. I've been part of it for a long time, particularly in this neighborhood. This wonderful neighborhood, we have our covenant of all the religious communities in Lake Hills, Bellevue. And our congregation is just really a few yards away, Temple B'nai Torah. We've been part of it. When we first came here in 1998, we were welcomed by the good people in this church, and they made us feel very much welcome and at home. And that means a lot to us. I don't think I can really fully express the gratitude that we feel to you and to God for this great opportunity. Now, I'm a Jew, and I would say, looking at the cross and being in a Christian church, I share something with Jesus. I was born a Jew, I live my life as a Jew, and I'll die as a Jew, just like he did. And one thing that is such an important part of who we are as Jews is the opportunity to pray to God in community. That's really, we have a rule that we have certain prayers we can only say when we have a community. We call it a minyan. You have to have 10 people to say certain prayers, and that's because the tradition and the rabbis are encouraging us to be together. And so I love being part of a Jewish community, whether being out there and as a member of the congregation or being up leading the congregation so we can pray the prayers together, be in relationship with God, and just express our gratitude each and every day for all of the blessings we have, and we have so many blessings. And as you were saying, Sister, COVID was a blessing too in some ways, because we learned a lot about life through that process. Now we're getting back together again in person. What a great thing that is. So I'm just personally, it's such a great privilege to be here and to share our journey. And I know we're not youngsters up here. We don't know how many years or days left we have on this earth, but as many as we do have, we'll always enjoy being together, won't we? Always. Amen.
Great, thank you. I mentioned earlier the lecture series that we've done at Timber Ridge called Empowered Aging, and that we've been trying to learn how to address the big questions and the big decisions that we need to make in our lives. And the theme of those discussions have been, what does it mean to live fully until just before we die? So I want to put that to the panel. Out of your traditions, out of your faith connections, your faith depth, what does it mean? I think that's basically a theological question almost. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to live fully? Sanaa, would you begin?
You ask such simple questions.
Yeah.
Okay, from my understanding of Islam, but not just Islam, I've studied many other things as well. The human being has a dual nature. We have a spiritual nature and we have a physical nature. And in Islam, the physical nature is not bad and not something to avoid, but the goal is a balance between the two, not to ignore either. And so, to me, as I understand it, the human being is like a bridge between two worlds, the spiritual world and the physical world. And the goal is to make it a strong bridge so that when necessary, we can look to the spiritual side and gain the strength from the world of the unchanging, bring those truths, those values into the world of change. And while we're in the world of change, I believe that we have any moment, we can choose what I call the dark side or the light side. And by the light side, I mean the teachings of all the great teachers, or from an Islamic point of view, the messengers of God, the messengers that have been sent to human beings to help us live rightly, so that we can feel a peace in our hearts even when things are difficult around us. And I could go on, but I think that's enough. I'm happy to answer questions to the extent I can later.
Yeah. Sense of balance, great. Rabbi, how about you? What does it mean to live fully?
As we grow older, we hope, as we remain healthy as we possibly can, recognizing that the aging process also means sometimes a deterioration of health, physical, spiritual, and mental. But as long as we have our senses about us and we have our abilities, one of the great things about being older is passing on the wisdom that we've gained in our lives to the younger generation. Vishinantam livanecha, it says in the book of Deuteronomy, you should teach the truth to your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. And so to me, that's one of the great gifts of aging, is that you are able to pass on what you have learned to the generations that are coming after. and I have a very strong relationship with a grandson, a grandchild, and as often as I can, almost every day, we have conversations about what life is all about, and I'm hoping that when I leave this world, he'll remember some of those lessons, and he'll talk about his grandfather and the things that have been passed down from me to him. And that's really one of the main motivations of what I do as an aging adult and an aging Jew.
It's beautiful.
I've seen you interact with your grandson and play music together.
That's true.
And it's beautiful. And so I think I hear you saying living fully has something to do with living for the future, passing on our values, our traditions.
That's very much true.
Yeah, okay. Sendo, how about you?
Well, from a Zen perspective, for me, living fully is first living joyfully with impermanence. It's working at and getting a little bit better at letting go of preferences and aversions, not letting go of, not ceasing to have them, but letting go of clinging to them, being attached to them. It's living with an awareness of non-separation. The deepest level, I am not separate from everything else, sentient, non-sentient, the universe, all seamlessly connected. And isn't it amazing that that's true and that I'm it, really? And so, feeling gratitude for this. Living fully is living generously and compassionately. It's leading a life of loving action. It's, as I age, very much feeling more and more connected to ancestors, to everyone who came before me, not just my Zen ancestors, but everyone. It's a real connection that I feel more and more. And also coming to know that I am an ancestor, and this very much connects with what you're saying. I don't have any children or grandchildren, of course, but I am nonetheless an ancestor. And who I am and what I still can do, therefore matters. Living fully is going straight ahead, only one step at a time, and improvising a lot, and doing it with a sense of humor as long as I can.
Great. Sharon?
That's beautiful. Yes, thank you. As far as what we're trying to do, David is here, and he and I are intending to move into Horizon House next year as I turn 80. My parents died early 80s, but I'm sure they had sleep apnea, and I've been working with that for 19 years now, so I think we might make it a little longer, but who knows? We don't know. We both have passions about things we love to do, and we've been married 53 and a half years, something like that. And we pray at each meal that we're together. We pray out loud when we can at home, and just offer gratitude for having abilities that God is, gifts that He's given us that we can share, and also we can receive from others and we can give. And so I feel like some of that's, there's a love and being grateful for things, like you were saying. And then we're fortunate that we're kind of at a stage in our lives. I've been since I retired after a 31-year career, getting to finish seminary and be ordained when I turned 69 back in 2013, and working with seniors and appreciating them so much, and the environment where I'm at is beautiful, so that's why I want to move there. When you lose a spouse, it's very painful, and I'm seeing that in that environment, and probably many others you know of, where people come together because they've been through it, or they may go through it pretty soon too, or something, and they lift each other up, and that community is beautiful. So to me, a lot of this is related to Christianity, to all of us, that community and showing love and gratitude, Thanksgiving, all that. So I think those are the main points I'd make.
Okay, good. Next one to you, Rabbi. As you've grown older, how have you found that your faith tradition has given you some guidance to big decisions that you've had to make or that you know you're going to need to make? And where does that guidance come from? Does it come from the teachings, or from the history, or from the tradition, or from the community? You talked about community earlier.
From all of those, but where it comes from is primarily for our faith tradition is from the holy books. The holy books are really where we find that wisdom, and for us it's the Tanakh, what Christians call the Old Testament. We call the Hebrew Scriptures. The Torah is another way we express it. Torah means instruction. It's divine instruction, but it's also given through human beings in ancient times. The words that we pray are these ancient words. They're also words of guidance to how to live our lives. So for us, the book, the written word, is really central because it's a reflection of God. Whether it's the revelation of God directly or indirectly, that's for scholars to debate. But what we have is this wonderful tradition. And when we read it, as we do each week, we always try to, we turn it over and over again, because there's always something new in it each time we read it. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful tradition. Just the first words of the Torah, it's just so inspiring. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And everything comes from that moment. So we look back to the very beginnings of creation, and we are inspired. So for me, turning to the Scripture, turning to the Torah is where I find it.
Thank you.
Wow.
Sendo, how about the Buddhist community, the Buddhist tradition? What's the source of insight and wisdom?
Well, I would say it's certainly teachings and traditions which have a lot of resonance with those of our other faiths. We just meet so many places. But it's probably more the way we think of it, the way I think of it, most deeply from practice. from the practice of seated meditation, from the practice of trying to take the wisdom that grounding, letting go, ability to let go that can develop with seated meditation, feeling of deep connectedness, take that out into the rest of my life. And also, a source of wisdom is the Sangha, the spiritual community, and the modeling that I see going on around me, not just from my teacher, but from all the other practitioners. It's very much a group practice. So the two biggest decisions, really I have three kinds of decisions which I'm currently facing. Most of the big decisions I've made without any faith tradition whatsoever, but I guess I was headed in that direction. But the two that are coming up, one is the decision to become ordained more fully, a next step in ordination, to become a teacher, ordained as a teacher. And that may be happening next summer. Part of me would like to run away from this and feel like I'm 81, I get to retire. It's high time, I retire. But the more courageous step will be to go straight ahead into it. The other decision is a little simpler, but I've been reluctant about it. I've been postponing it. It is to move into Horizon House, as Sharon and Dave are planning to do. Mm-hmm. And I actually have had an apartment there since 2018. I sold my house, bought this apartment at Horizon House, a lovely apartment. And just then an opportunity came up to move into my Zen practice center, which I had been wanting to do. So I seized that opportunity. I could do both. I would live for a while at Choboji, and then in a couple of years I'd move to Horizon House. Well, the pandemic happened. I was very happy not to be at Horizon House, where people were locked into the rooms for a while. Mm-hmm. And I got more and more attached to Choboji. Well, there's an attachment. But it's important that I take this next step, that I become part of a wider community of people who are like me, aging, all the kinds of mutual support that we can be to each other that Sharon is describing. It's really important to me to become part of that. So my plan now is to do that next fall. And then the other kind of decision which is coming up, which is still more nebulous, is that I have my only close relative, my younger sister, has serious health problems, which are partly mental health problems. Mm. She's having more frequent breakdowns than she used to as she ages, and physical problems as well. And there's going to come a time when I am probably going to have to not just help her make decisions, but make some decisions for her. And this is the unknown. Horizon House I know about. Ordination I kind of know about. What happens with my sister's living out the end of her life and mine with her, I don't know about yet. But that's going to happen. And so I'm grateful that I have everything from my Zen practice now to help me through my anxieties around that, which are considerable.
Thank you. Thank you. Sharon, do you have something to add?
I'll just say really shortly, again, trying to be open to what the Spirit is calling and kind of guiding us. I think that's the most important thing that I try to follow, but kind of humorous. For peace of mind, retire from being the general manager of the universe. Yeah. So.
Amen.
Sanaa Joy.
I suspect I'm not the only one in this room who tends to watch too much news and get a little upset by it. And so I really have quite faithfully had to turn to my faith to try to put my head back on straight. I get discouraged, and I worry about the human race. So what I do is a combination of what Sendo and Rabbi Mirel are saying. Sufi Islam has a lot of practices, meditative primarily. And for me, the meditative practices are so I can get calm and open to the messages of scriptures. I am not proud of this, but when I first started studying Islam, I had all the negative stereotypes and on and on. I actually threw the Quran across the room because all it said was hell and hellfire and punishment, and it took me a while, a long while, to realize it was the eyes with which I was looking. And I was looking through the lenses of my own prejudice, and I was not open to the very reassuring, positive influences or messages of the Quran and the Bible and the Torah, which Islam accepts, all three of those. So when I'm in a place to receive, it's amazing what Scripture says to me, what I can hear. And the other place I get guidance is from the goodness of people, kind acts. And I have to share something with you that happened to me this morning. Again, it reveals my own limitations, but it's beautiful. I left my purse with my wallet in it at the gym yesterday. I didn't realize it until this morning. And the gym was very crowded yesterday. And my news influenced brain, so, oh dear, it's gone. I'm going to have to go through all the credit cards and anything. Anyway, I did call the gym, and they had the purse, and we went over to pick it up. And the money, the credit cards, everything was in it. There are good people in the world. We have to hear about that. And it's like I have to be knocked in the head to remember that, and I know it, but I forget. If I don't have the right input, what's that old thing with computers, garbage in, garbage out? I can't watch much news.
Nice.
Thank you. I've got a few more questions, but we're almost out of time. I want to just pick one of these last questions. We'll go through that fairly quickly, not too fast, and then we'll open it up to see what you have to say about this. And that's this question. How does your faith tradition's understanding of death and what lies beyond death inform the decisions you make about your life today?
I'd like to.
Let me invite Sendo to start with that one.
Well, for Zen, we speak of this great matter of life and death. That's the most important thing. And it's not life and death as two separate experiences. It's life and death hyphenated as the same. the fundamental process is creation and destruction. That's going on in the universe. It's going on Earth, amongst us. It's going on in each of us individually, physically, and spiritually. And impermanence is bound up with it, but it's also kind of in itself permanent. And so life and death is what is, and I am it. That's what I believe, and I hope I can bring that to my own facing of death when as I become closer to it.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Right.
Sharon?
When I was about 1 year old, my family moved to Colville, Washington, and my dad was a pastor there. And the first night that we stayed in the parsonage, I found this out later, was when my baby sister died, the first night. And so, of course, I was really young, very close in age. And years later, as I began to find out why I would cry anytime I heard about death. Because as a baby, she was weeping in the family and everything. So anyway, the understanding of they're getting to see the baby later on really touched my heart. And I believe somehow we will know others when we are gone ourselves. But then David's father came and stayed with us in Albuquerque, New Mexico, end of his life. And he was waiting for his sister to come all the way from California, and she did. And that night, when everybody went to bed, I went in and sang, "The Lord bless you and keep you," and said, "Now you can go be with Virginia." And he left very quickly. And it was beautiful. They're not all beautiful like that, but it's well worth being aware. It's beautiful. So thank you.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful, really.
Thank you. Well, if I believe, and I do, that good people are rewarded, if not in this life. We know that many people die tragically, and that's always bothered me. So they don't seem to benefit in this life. But Scripture, as I read it, and all three scriptures, as I read it, reassures me that if I strive with all my heart to be a good person, the old word righteous, a righteous person, that things will be good. And when I'm not righteous, that I feel remorse. In Islam, God is all forgiving, will forgive all sins if we are sorry. So I find that very hopeful, and I've had the great blessing of being with quite a few people in the process of dying. And it can be beautiful, the process of dying. And I know that the glow on some people's eyes and face as they die is a shadow of the spirit world into which they're going, if they're people at peace. So, yeah, that's enough.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Very deep question, obviously. No real answers. I just would say that if there is no afterlife, just being alive is the greatest gift, and it's enough. I don't need anything beyond this life. It's been, such a great journey, such a great privilege. I'm so thankful to God just to be alive. However, having said that, as you mentioned, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam share a common image and belief that there is a life beyond this life. That when we die, we are transformed into a different life. There's a lot of different metaphors that we use, but it's called life beyond life, the afterlife, heaven, Garden of Eden, a lot of different metaphors we use, and that's an integral part of our Western faith tradition. Some of the Eastern traditions have the idea that you'll be reincarnated, that your soul will go into a different form, a different body. That's also afterlife as well. Mm-hmm. Very possible. But what I always say to people when confronting death, and they say to me, I don't believe in the afterlife, even though it might be a little glib what I say. What you believe has nothing to do with reality. What you believe doesn't mean that there isn't an afterlife. I believe in the afterlife. You don't. We'll find out. We'll all find out.
That's a good one to end on. How about some comments or questions? Do you have some
One in the back.
gifts or insights that you'd like to share?
Because we're recording, I'm going to come to you with the microphone, and I'm going to ask you to, I'll come to you, and I'll ask you to come out just a little bit so we can get you on camera as well. And just a reminder that we're asking questions of the panelists. Someday you might be invited on a panel, but today these are our panelists. So if you have a question for our panelists, we'd love to ask you to ask that. So I'll start off and then I'll move around. So if you could just step just.
I was going to think. 2 years ago, my uncle passed away in Caracas, Venezuela. And today I decided that I wasn't going to connect with sadness. I just started to work in NAMI. And it's funny because in a not developed country, I heard when you were talking, I'm sorry, I don't know your names. I just was walking and I say, I don't want to get home. And I start to go to meetings by Zoom of Interfaith. And when I saw Interfaith, it's like, oh, this is in person. Let me see what's going on in here. And it's interesting because I was raised Catholic, and my uncle didn't believe in the afterlife. So I don't know if it exists or not. I heard something all over the place, but I love to be here. Not because I work or no for a nonprofit, because nonprofits are welcome. Because mental health, if we are at science, they add the World Health Organization add spirituality to the concept of health. And if we're going to talk about science, also in the University of Wisconsin-Davidson, start to put little things in the hat of the Dalai Lama, and from there become mindfulness. And for me, mindfulness is like pray, and it's how we see, and an international medical graduate, and a very good friend with girls from Saudi Arabia, and the 7 levels of sky, and different things that maybe sound confusing, but I feel here safe because aging means it's not about how your body look, because my uncle was, wow, he was a professor too in the university. It's also about your wisdom. So I'm not eating good because many things going on with my physical body, but now I feel just wisdom coming from this panel that, of course, I will wait as a good girl to listen to later. So we talk a little. Thank you so much for being here. Gracias. Dios es bueno. Bendiciones.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Another question?
Anyone else?
We're going to entertain some questions, though. Do we have any questions to be asked? Okay, please.
Oh, yeah,
Just-
good question.
I'm a person who really believes personally in the value of every living thing as being spiritual, and that they're all part of me. And I'm just wondering how each of your faiths deals with the notion of every living thing, like the pets we have as well as the animals we're afraid of, or the other human beings we're afraid of.
Maybe repeat that?
Yeah, the panel hear the question about what is your faith tradition, and through your understanding, say about the reality of other living things beyond humans and their experiences of life, and perhaps of death and of life cycles. Where would you have anything to say to the questioner about that from your personal interpretation from your faith tradition?
Would you like to?
Yeah, my branch of Buddhism does not have the idea of the same idea of an afterlife as the Abrahamic traditions do, but here's how. For me, my life is a temporary condition. And that's true of the lives of all sentient beings, all the other living creatures, mammals, dogs, cats, insects, fish. Temporary condition and a great gift, my goodness. One of the things we're asked as a kind of Zen trick question is, show me your face before you were born. And what that points to is that before I was born, I was part of everything. After I die and I drop my body, we speak of dropping our bodies, I will continue to be part, I've never stopped being part of everything, but I will cease being an individual consciousness, and I will be part of everything as I always have been. So yes, the animals are very much part of that.
Could be a great conversation. Anyone else want to add to that, or?
I'm reading a book, The Church of the Wild, How Nature Invites Us into the Sacred. I've just gotten started, so I don't have the answers. But it talks about how important it is for us to go out in nature and realize that God made all of this, as we see in the Bible to start with. And it's just really touches me a lot. And it's talking about a lot of the ills that we have in this world are because we just feel like we can buy things and we can buy the land and we can just use it the way we want to instead of cooperating and being stewards of the earth, for example. So I'm really looking forward to getting going on this book some more. And a good question, thank you.
I would say that, for some people, and I understand this, they say, I really love my dog. And I don't really want to be in heaven without my dog. And all I can say is, with God, everything is possible. With God, everything is possible. And so I'm not going to say your dog's not going to be with you in heaven. With God, everything is possible.
I have one more caveat on that really fast. My grandfather, who lived to 97, but close to that age, he visited when our older son asked the question at 5-year-old, how much they loved dinosaurs back in,
Sure.
there. He said, Mother, do dinosaurs go to heaven? I said, grandfather, this is important to this child. And he said, well, whatever portion of that dinosaur is a spirit, that will be in heaven. Mm-hmm. And I said, yahoo! Thank you.
Okay.
Reverend Donham, I think we'd have time for one more. We want to honor everybody's time here and online. If we had one more question, I think we could entertain that if there is.
See if there is one.
I think we hit it all. We covered it all.
Very good. I'll turn it back to you to close this out, and then I'll have a final word.
Great. Well, there's going to be some conversation time around the cookies, and I think that's time for us to do that. And I'm very grateful for all of you for the invitation to be here, and we're grateful that you've all come, and I hope this tradition goes on into the future. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Reverend Tom and panelists, we thank you very much. Those who have created this behind the scenes, Molly and others, the Interfaith Covenant community, and our honor to host here at Cross of Christ. We look forward to other opportunities to be together, our Thanksgiving Eve gathering and next year's forum as well. Those who are putting this together always want to be better at it. There is a survey that they would ask you to fill out and leave some information as well. Let me send us with a blessing. For the one who is and is all, to us all, in all of our own ways, may this evening continue to bless us as we are called to bless one another and others, guided by that one. Go in peace. We look forward to seeing you again. Thank you for being here.